Welcome everyone back to The Exchange. This is the podcast about buying, selling, and building law firms. I'm your host, Tom Lenfestey, and today's guest is someone who has spent decades at the intersection of finance, operations, and the legal profession. Good friend of mine, and really excited as far as having her back on. She's a CFA, an MBA, the founder of not one, but two companies focused entirely on law firms, and as we were talking pre-record, the author of 7 books, including 2 bestsellers, and her newest book, Scaling Law, which I'm really excited to talk about today. If you've ever felt like running your law firm, but somehow your law firm is truly running you, this episode is going to hit different. And I think that's what our guest really brings. We're talking about EOS, the entrepreneurial mindset and the surprisingly specific things that separate firms that scale from those firms that just get bigger and more chaotic. Joining me today is Brooke Lively. Brooke, welcome to The Exchange.
Thanks, Tom. I'm still not quite over the decades in the industry. That's making me feel really old this morning.
I know. It kind of moves quickly, right? As we like to pass and kind of go from there.
But when you start when you're 7, it's
That's
amazing
true.
what you can get done.
That is true. That early achiever, right, that you were and kind of carried from there. So the Doogie Howser mentality, right, the young Sheldon, so to speak, you just accomplish things at a very early age, right? That works.
Absolutely. It helps when you grow up in a law firm.
That's true. And that's part of, I know, your story and background, Brooke, where you are today, and again, you came up through the law firms, right? Raised in a law firm, so to speak, but you've been purely focused on really helping law firm founders and owners.
Yeah, I literally did grow up in a law firm. Father's a litigator. My brother now runs that firm. I graduated from grad school and had gone to work for a hedge fund, but my father lost the woman who had been running his firm for about 20 years and said, I need you to come run this firm. And I'm like, okay. I thought I can do that on the side, right? Because you can totally run a law firm on the side. Well, turns out I couldn't. I eventually quit the hedge fund and ran my family's law firm. Hired someone to help with sales and marketing, and his clients came to me and said, can you do for us what you do for your family? And that was when I really realized that most law firms don't run on the numbers. They don't run like a business. And I didn't realize that what I was doing was different. And that was when I opened CathCap. It's a fractional CFO company specifically for law firms. And that was great. I loved that. And we noticed that some clients came to us and they did really, really well. Tom, the ones like...
Yeah. They listen and they do and they implement and they go, right?
Right. That high and to the right kind of hockey stick kind of results. And then we had a group that would work with us and they'd make steady progress. And then we had like bucket C that we just felt guilty. Like, why are they spending money with it? We're not delivering because we're not seeing any progress. And so we really dug in to figure out what it was that we were doing with bucket A that we weren't doing with bucket C, because that was a problem. Turns out that it wasn't us. We were giving them the same advice. We were using, the same everything.
Yeah, same tools. You were giving them the same tools, same knowledge.
Bucket A was executing and bucket C wasn't. We're like, okay, what is allowing bucket A to execute and what's holding bucket C back? And so we kept digging and we finally figured out that bucket A, with the exception of one firm, everybody in bucket A was running on EOS. That was in some ways really eye-opening to us. And in some ways we're like, well, of course, because we ran on EOS. We're like, yeah, we get that. Of course they're executing, because EOS helps you identify what's really important to get done. And it gives you permission to say no to everything else, to all those distractions.
No, absolutely. And Brooke, for those that maybe haven't heard of EOS before, it comes from, an author in a book, Traction, but give me the background on EOS and kind of what it is and where it comes from as kind of core principles, at least.
EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, is the idea that there are 6 key components. And to the extent that we can strengthen these 6 key components, then your business will run better. The components are people, vision, data, issues, process, and then traction. If you don't have a vision of where you're going, and if everybody in your team doesn't share that same vision, then, everybody's going to a different place. So you're definitely not getting there. If you don't have the right people in the right seats, it's absolutely a Jim Collins thing, right? The right people in the right seats, you're never going to accomplish anything. Yeah. And the hardest conversation I have with partners is when we look at the accountability chart and we look at the leadership team, and I look at some of the partners and I say, you don't have a seat on the leadership team. You're sitting in the owner's box, but the owner's box is a non-operating board of directors. Non-operating means you don't make decisions.
Yep. You sometimes
own it.
Yeah.
We report out to you.
That's right. And it's really, I think, hard. We deal, and you, again, coming up through law firms, I've been in this for a while, helping lawyers. And, I can state as a lawyer, we like control. So there's a control aspect of we need to know, right?
And Tom, the industry, because of what you do, that's beaten into you. Because if you give up control, you lose your license.
Yeah.
If you don't do it properly, if something goes out with your signature, with your name, and it's wrong, you can be sued, you can, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And it ends in, you lose your license. So, yeah, you're all kind of control freaks, and I get it. And it's somewhat reasonable. I'll actually give you that.
Yeah, and I think the overall aspect, though, is to see, and that's what I would say, Brooke, traction for me really hit home. And even as, a founder, it's hard because, that's the visionary, right? And traction and EOS goes through all this. You are that control, like ideas, right? Let's go. Let's do this, guys, and we're going to handle it all. And you have to really say, nope, we're going to slow it down. We're going to go to more of that business platform, but we're really going to focus on this law firm as a business. Mm-hmm. And I do think, whether you're a partnership committee, a partnership of 10 or 20 or 100, or, you're, 3 partners that have been together for a while and anything else, and you're not reaching that scale. That's the part where I think traction and EOS and what you're doing with Scaling Law, Brooke, is huge because it shifts the mindset, in my opinion, from lawyer who is a partner in a firm to lawyer who is either part of that leadership and management, or to your, you're sitting in the ownership box. You're not part of that, this over here, right? And for some, that's really hard. For others, I always joke, like, put me in the owner's box. I'm ready. Like, let's go. The owner's box sounds fun. It sounds exciting, right?
Put me in the owner's box where I have no responsibility.
Right.
But practicing law and bringing in clients. Hey.
That's right.
And cashing my checks.
That's it. Do you see it shifting in law firms? Do you see it shifting from, like the entrepreneurial, focusing on it as a business versus what you were saying is kind of those type C's that you guys had that
the practices?
That weren't really doing it. Are you seeing the shift amongst owners and lawyers and everything else that they are starting to shift more over to what I'd call your, they're accepting the A's and they're moving to things like EOS and otherwise?
Yeah, frankly, I think there are more people who realize that I would categorize as entrepreneurs with law degrees, as opposed to lawyers who are entrepreneurial. And I think it used to be that there were some lawyers who were just really entrepreneurial that grew their firms. And now I think that there are entrepreneurs out there who happen to have law degrees, who happen to own law firms. And they're going out and they're doing amazing things with those law firms. And then they're going beyond that and they're building more. And that's one of the great things about EOS it gives you the freedom of choice. It makes you almost redundant in your firm. So we were talking before this, and you asked if I had an integrator. I said, well, I do for my CFO company, for CathCap. I spend about an hour a week working in CathCap. Pam is our integrator. She is amazing. She runs that company 100%.
We just had Pam on this podcast, and she was amazing.
Yeah. She's doing an amazing job. And when basically it got to the point where I didn't have anything to do, she was the one that suggested I come do this. Because, we kept sending people out to go find EOS implementers, and they came back and they said two things. One, I can't find an implementer who's willing to work with a law firm. And we're like, okay, what's wrong with these people? We love attorneys. But, my love of attorneys is a whole different issue that really I'm seeking therapy, but it still hadn't worked. And the other thing is we found an implementer who's willing to work with a law firm, but they don't get the legal industry. But when you implement EOS, when you find someone who is willing to work with a law firm, who loves lawyers, who understands the legal industry, and you implement EOS, it gives you as the owners the freedom to decide what you want to do with your time. Do you want to spend it being that incredible litigator who handles just a couple of really special cases a year? Do you want to spend that time in marketing? Like, I've got a client in Oklahoma that I swear he has broken the code on Google. I don't know how he does it, but he can spin up a new office in any city in like 12 and a half seconds because he's broken the code on Google. And he loves it. And like, that's his jam. Or do you want to spend we were just in Puerto Rico together, not together, but we were at a conference.
Yeah, for a conference.
And do you want to spend your time on the beach in Puerto Rico? Or a lot of these entrepreneurs who happen to have law degrees are going out and starting other companies.
Right.
Which is what I did. But that freedom of choice, the fact that your firm doesn't need you all the time, it's not constantly sucking at you. And that's part of what gives you value when people come to see you, Tom, right?
Absolutely. We've transacted and help, create the succession plans, the exit strategies, the sales for EOS firms that have been on EOS, and that founder or founders sit in the owner's box. And it is one, you're just going to get more offers, higher offers, right? The value of the firm, the ease of transition and the success, because buyers can see what you've built.
Well, what is the stat? And I should remember it. And it's in my Exit on Top book. 85% of people who sell profoundly regret it within the first year. I think it's 85, maybe it's 80%, something like that.
And I think it's huge
depressing.
Because, if you don't have a plan, if you haven't started to really chase the opportunities, you're just giving up the control at that point in time in exit. What have you seen when you guys went through it with CathCap and you realized, hey, we've got these firms that are excelling. These are the A's, they're on EOS. We have these firms that are getting the same advice, the same service. They're not growing, they're not scaling. There are, the C's that really, they need help. Have you seen or been able to be part of that help now under scaling law and you doing EOS integration and everything else? Have you been able to, see them move from C to A? And if so, how does that look?
Tom, I'm going to give you the lawyer answer. It depends. I'll give you the scary answer first, then I'll give you the other answer. Scary answer first. I have one client who I adore her. I think we had to cycle through her leadership team twice to find the right people. Hiring was not her greatest skill. And I get this, and it happens so often. She grew really fast. She kept promoting from within. And she was promoting people that she kept thinking, oh, I can grow them, but what got you here won't get you there. And, what you knew how to do as a $500,000 firm, you don't know how to do as a $15 million firm. And you need to hire someone to do that. So it took us a while, But then she went out and she sourced from the outside those people, and man, now she's firing on all cylinders, and it is amazing. There are other firms that I've got a firm in, well, it's so funny. It's a virtual firm, so they're bi-coastal. And in a year and a half, they have tripled in size. They've gone from 3 attorneys to 6 attorneys and tripled in revenue. Their profit has gone way up. The owners are working less. One has a house in South Africa. She just went for 3 weeks and did not work at all while she was in South Africa, which is amazing. The other partner, who used to be so afraid of every single step, is like, let's go do that. And now is making all these decisions with so much confidence. And all of that started within 6 months. Like, that was really fast.
Is that because of the system and because of, you know, especially if you guys were already working with them at CathCap, right? The data might have been there, but really getting to the point of the system, because, you know, when we trip across, you know, founders, a lot of them are the most stressed founders you could compare to other verticals, industries, because they're working in all aspects of the business. You know, they're pushing hard. And I think that's where I get back to. Some of them see this as just like, great, it's another idea, but it's not achievable for me because it's going to take so much more of my time and effort that I can't give, right? So I think like that story you were just giving shows like that's probably where those founders were, right? Like in some aspect. Mm-hmm. And you were able to help them in a fairly short amount of time get there, hopefully with like already the data's in place, but you were helping them with the system to get there.
So actually that second firm I talked about wasn't working with CathCap.
Okay.
And they talked to, I know.
Yeah, I know. You can't have them all, Brooke, but it's okay.
You can't have them
it's
all.
Okay. It's okay.
But they had talked to 10 different people about helping them grow and coaching them. And they were really looking for that person that had a way for them to do it, that had a system, that understood the industry, that got what they did, and that really was a match for them, because that's so important. Tom, you know that. You've got to find the person that you click with, because I tell the story and Pam just shakes her head. She's like, you got to quit telling that story. But I had a client one time that said, I'm going to have to show you my underwear drawer. And I'm like,
you're like, I don't know what you signed up for, but
I'm like,
yeah, a little bit different.
He's like, you know that underwear that's way in the back that kind of like has some holes and some skid mark stains? And I'm like looking at his wife going, I think Dan needs new underwear. I'm like, not really, but I'm going with the analogy. He's like, I got to show you everything. I'm like, yeah, you got to tell me everything. I don't want to see your dirty underwear. But you do, you've got to find that person that you can really talk to. And so, yeah, you have to find someone that you trust. And so, was the data there? The data's not always there. With that firm, no. I got to tell you, 1.5 years in, we still don't know their conversion rates. We don't even know where their clients come from. We know their referrals.
Right. There you go. You know what the other part too, Brooke, is going through it, EOS again with, you know, my prior law firm and everything else.
It does. You know, a disinterested third party to help surface the issues. Look, they're just issues that need to be solved. We need to bring it up. We need to talk about it. We need to figure out what the problem is and what the solution is. That's all it is. So yeah, and that, you know, that's what scaling law is all about. So scaling law is more than just the book. The book is about what it's like to implement EOS at a law firm. You can go read Traction. That is the how-to. It's the textbook. Do this. Scaling law tells you what it's like. And I've got, 8 or 10 law firms who talked to me and said, you can use our name, you can use our stories, and I will tell you that I was the chief refrigerator picker-outer in my firm as the founding partner, that, I had a deli line of people outside my door asking questions because I wouldn't let my people make decisions. All the things that they had going on and all the problems they had in implementing EOS, like where they struggled. It's really honest, but it's also about the community that we're starting. So, we're going to start that towards the end of the summer. Awesome. Where you can go and you can talk to other people who are solving the same problems you are, using the same tools, who are on EOS and solving those tools. And we have webinars, both to help you learn how to use EOS tools, ways to improve your practice. So, Pam's going to come from CathCap and speak. I've got people coming from Titus Talent to talk about things like how to use testing to hire better or how to increase your retention of your people.
Right.
I've got Chad Dudley coming to talk about, doesn't everybody want to talk to Chad about his 8X exit to sure. PE?
That's right. The headliner, the headliner these days.
Right. Well, and I also have Ben Hardy coming to do a workshop. And I don't know if you know him, but he wrote 10X is easier than 2X and the gap and the gain. And so he's going to come do a workshop. And so, there's more to it than that. And, I mentioned earlier that our clients at CathCap had a hard time finding EOS implementers who understood law firms. And so I went to EOS and I said, look, these are the problems that the legal industry is facing. And they said, okay, you can start the first ever affinity group, which is the community. And they said, you can also train EOS implementers on how to work with law firms. So that's one of the things that I'm doing. So it's not just me that has these skills. I'm building a stable of implementers. So different people, different personalities, different parts of the country that have these skills that understand what law firms need and what lawyers are going through.
And Brooke, I would say that's huge because, again, going through it or having worked with firms that have been on EOS, it is a challenge, right? For them to, get the right implementer that's advising them, but understands law firms.
Yeah. And it's really, again, it's back to that freedom of choice to go from that person who is the constriction point, the limit, the governor on the growth of the firm to someone who can do and be and add value where they add the most value.
Absolutely.
That's incredibly freeing for you and for your firm.
Absolutely. Well, again, I love what you're doing. I know the book is out now. If everybody wants to pick it up, they can pick it up on Amazon, other places. Yep. Okay.
Barnes and Noble. Yep. We're out there.
Yep. Scaling Law. And I would tell you that, again, to pair that with Traction and everything else that you guys are doing. And if you want to, we'll give, of course, Brooke's contact at the end. Brooke, if you're open with it, I'd like to do a few quick fire questions just to close it out if you're good with that.
Geez Louise. Yeah, and I bet you prepped me for this and I didn't read the prep, so bring it on.
No, I didn't, so you're good.
Oh, okay, good.
There's no prep at all. And these are easy, but I would tell you, EOS or gut instinct, which do you think really, as far as, law firm owners have saved more law firms?
I would say EOS, absolutely. Gut instinct. If nothing else, when you make a decision with gut instinct, it's never actually made because you go back and you revisit it 42 times, including during dinner with your family, and then while you're watching TV, and then at 3 a.m. when you wake up, and then at 10 a.m. during that deposition the next morning.
Absolutely. The biggest lies that law firm owners tell themselves.
I can do it myself.
That'd be a good one, right? And again, that's the whole aspect of, I always go back to, law teaches us competency, right? To your point, you were saying like perfection, but it teaches us that, maybe we don't know it now, but we can become competent, right?
I can learn how to do that.
So it's that hard part of I can do it myself.
Let's go back to Ben Hardy's great book, Who Not How. Don't figure out how to do it. Figure out who can do it for you.
That's right.
Because they're better at it than you are, I promise, and it's not worth your billable rate for you to figure out how to do it.
And again, I think that's a big thing of, EOS, but overall just the shift that we're seeing in law firm, hopefully, entrepreneurship, management, anything else is, it doesn't have to be you, just because you own the firm, right? It doesn't have to be you that sits in that seat. And I think when you find that one, it's, everybody worries about control, but you already mentioned, Brooke, that opportunity, it's freeing. And when you have the data and systems to really guide you and give you the info you want, you're like, man, this is great.
Well, and you also need to understand that you are not free. You do not have a zero cost. You're like, I can do the bookkeeping. I'm free. No, you're not. Your billable rate. I have a client up in Buffalo. He happens to be PI. We did a breakdown. We figured out his effective billable rate. If he billed per hour, his billable rate was about $2,600 an hour. We're like, would you pay a bookkeeper $2,600 an hour to do your books? I mean, he was appalled. I'm like, could you take those 5 or 6 hours a month that you do your books and work on a case? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what could we do with that, $15,000? He's like, oh, we could do a lot. I'm like, we could hire you a full-time bookkeeper and have money left over. He was like, oh, yeah.
So I always go back to, I remember years ago when I hired somebody to cut, our lawn, right? To take care of things. And my dad, who had grown up in the corporate world where, his income was always kind of fixed and, budgeted and everything else, he couldn't believe it because that's not how we were raised as, you do it yourself. Right. And I think as lawyers, you just do it yourself. Right. And when things are, you're bootstrapping in those early years, but what you realize is that kind of stuff you did sticks with you. And I think that's a great example, Brooke, of going through is your time is more valuable spent somewhere else. And if you really want to scale your firm, you need to figure that out and then shift to do that. And I think that's largely what you can help.
Yeah. And I really want people to think about, and I use this example because for some reason, attorneys won't see it any other way. Are you a surgeon emptying bedpans? Because for some reason, attorneys, I'm like, are you an attorney doing paralegal work? They're like, yeah, but we get paid more per hour if I do the work than the paralegal. I'm like, oh my God, you're missing the point. We have better margins on the paralegal doing the work than we have on you doing the work. So yeah, are you a surgeon emptying bedpans? Can you do it? Yeah. Are you the best person to be doing it? No.
Well, my last quick hit question was going to be scaling law in one sentence. I think you may have just explained it pretty well, but I'm happy to give you a form if you want to. But I think that surgeon emptying bedpans is really what scaling law hopefully helps you as a lawyer get past. Anything to add to that about what scaling law is, Brooke?
I don't think so. No.
Well, good. Well, again, if you don't want to be the lawyer, kind of making sure the toilet paper's full or whatever other analogy we want to use from that side. But I think the bookkeeping side is a great example, right? It's really about highest and best use. Brooke, thank you so much for being on this. Where can people find you, find the book, otherwise?
The easiest place is scalinglaw.com. You can email me at brooke@scalinglaw.com, and the book's available on Amazon.
Absolutely. Scalinglaw.com. I would encourage everybody out there, take a look, order the book, read the book, and, from that standpoint, contact Brooke because I think it really could be a game changer for your firms. Brooke, thanks so much for being on this and doing this. And I look forward to seeing you at the next conference or the next, mutual client introduction we have. But as always, great and greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Tom.